Hello everyone, my name is Sunita and today we are discussing about lesson number 16 of your SM syllabus, and this is last part of the series, and the topic for today is artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is a wide-ranging branch of computer science which is concerned with building smart machines that are capable of performing the task that typically requires human intelligence. With the help of artificial intelligence, which is also known as machine intelligence, the researchers are trying to make machine learn to think like humans. So there are variety of techniques such as machine learning, neural networks, which are used by the companies globally. The companies are investing in these technologies globally to make machines think and act like humans. So all those abilities such as learning, logic making, reasoning, perception, creativity, which were once considered to be unique to humans, will now be replicated or adopted by technology. So this field is basically still developing, and companies are developing computers and robotics which are able to analyze the data on the large scale, will supply the requested information, and also show the trigger events based on their findings. They will highlight the events which requires immediate attention. Now, there are various examples of this artificial intelligence where they say one example is chatbots, wherein the live chats can be performed with the help of machines or robots. So if you are a customer and putting any query to the company, it would be the robots or the machines who will be answering your question instead of the live service person. The other example of artificial intelligence could be Siri, Alexa, self-driving cars, robo-advisors, email spam filters, Netflix recommendations, and much more. Now, artificial intelligence is affecting the way the company develop and execute its strategy. And therefore, there are various researches which suggest that artificial intelligence will affect the way the companies are working. It will introduce the workforce changes. The skills that would be required by the future employees would be much different than today. It will impact the way the company collects and manages its data. There would be certain privacy issues. It will affect the way the companies collaborate and work together, and there would be higher ethical challenges for the business in future. As and when the company goes on depending upon the technology, the threats of dependency will increase. There would be job loss because the typical functions which are today performed by humans would in future be performed by machine itself, and there would definitely be security issues wherein the data or the private data of the users can be shared across for the benefits. But managers, the future managers should understand that there is tremendous opportunity in combining the human and machine intelligence for their own business. Now, there are 9 important areas where AI can be helpful. The first is business strategy. Most of the companies today feel that AI should be integrated or tied up in the business strategy in order to ensure that the benefits are accruing to them. So the first step is and that any strategy that you make should be reviewed first. First of all, your original business strategy should be reviewed. You should be clear as to what are you doing at present. So in the first step, we'll ask following questions. In the first step, we'll ask this question is our business strategy still right for us? So we'll ask whether in the current scenario, whether technology is changing fast and there is artificial intelligence in place, whether our existing business strategy is still workable or it's need to be updated. Is our current strategy is our strategy still current in the world of smarter products and services? So whether our strategy would be helpful to us in developing these smart products which are the requirement of today's market, and have our business priorities change. So the first in the first place, we'll definitely ponder upon our existing situation, our existing strategy as to whether we are in line with the changing business environment. In the second step, we'll find out our strategic AI priorities. So in this step, we'll be we'll be asking ourselves as to what are the areas in which we want to use artificial intelligence. For this, we need to ask following questions. What are our top business priorities? What problems do we need to solve? And how can AI help us to solve these problems and achieve our strategic goals? So these are the three questions that we'll ask as to what are our priorities, what are the problems that we are facing at present and which need to be solved immediately, and how AI can help us in solving this problem and reaching our goals. And there are certain areas or uses wherein artificial intelligence can be helpful. So artificial intelligence can help us in developing these smart products and services which are tech savvy. Artificial intelligence can make our existing business process and functions more intelligent and more convenient to do. Artificial intelligence can help us to automate the repetitive and the mundane tasks and free people to do more value adding activities. So the people waste most of their time in doing the repeated task which doesn't add any value. All those tasks can be clearly automated with the help of artificial intelligence. It can also help us to automate our entire manufacturing process with least human involvement. So these are the different areas wherein we can prioritize the use of artificial intelligence. Now, the third area talks about short-term AI adoption priorities. So herein they are saying that if you want to use AI for developing the product and services, now this is not an overnight task. Developing these smarter products and services requires some time. And that's why we should start with developing short-term priorities instead of using AI for meeting our long-term targets. First of all, AI should be used in the initial stages. Short-term targets should be framed, short-term goals should be framed for AI priorities. If we succeed in demonstrating the value of AI in short term, we can definitely use it for long-term projects as well. And for this, we have to ask following questions as to whether there are any opportunities to optimize our existing process. Can we optimize our existing process to make them quick and inexpensive with the help of AI in short run? What are the small steps and the smaller duration projects that could help us to gather more information and lay the groundwork for our bigger AI priorities? So in the first stage, we should develop all these kind of short-term projects and short-term steps, which will definitely help us to gain more understanding, and then we can definitely launch the long-term projects. Then the next point is data strategy. So artificial intelligence needs data to work. Lots and lots of data is needed if you want to use AI. And therefore, definitely the organization should have a sound data strategy. So this includes answering the following questions. So the organization should ask itself whether they have right kind of data which can help them to achieve their AI priorities set by them. Do they have enough amount of data? Do they have right type and volume of data? And if they do not have that right type of data, how will they get that data? Do we have to set up the new data collection methods, or we use the third party information? That is whether you will use the primary or the secondary data. Going forward, how can we begin to acquire data in the most strategic way? How how you can acquire the data in a more strategic, more convenient and less costly manner in future? So that is all about data collection. The next point talks about ethical and legal issues. So AI or any technology involves ethical issues regarding security or leaking of the data and security issues. So organizations should talk about the ethical problems related with artificial intelligence as well. So they need to ask following questions. How could the company avoid invading people private data, the user's private data? Are there any legal implications of using AI in this way? Are there any laws which ban company to use artificial intelligence in a particular way? Because you cannot do any act which is beyond or the legal boundaries. Are there some sort of concern which the companies need to obtain from the users, such as customers or employees or the other users, before putting AI into place? How can the company ensure that AI that they are using is free from any kind of discrimination and bias? Ethical implication is definitely a hot topic with regarding to any technology, including artificial intelligence, and the tech giants such as Google, Microsoft, IBM, Facebook, Amazon are working upon resolving this kind of ethical issues with the help of research and advocating. Then the next point is regarding technology issues. We need a sound technology and proper infrastructure if we want to make use of artificial intelligence. And for this, we need to ask following questions. What kind of technology is required for implementing our AI priorities? The technology could include machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, and much more. Do we have the right kind of technology? The company should ask itself whether they have these kind of technologies in their organization. And if they do not have these required technologies and system, then how could they put into place these kind of systems? Skills and capacity. Skills are skills of the humans working in the organization is must in order to develop the right kind of technology. AI requires the appropriate skills and capabilities, and without that skills organization cannot move further with achieving AI priorities. For the giant companies such as Facebook and Google, acquiring AI skills is not a big challenge, but for others it is a real challenge. And therefore, the organization should ask these questions. Where are our skill gaps? Whether the company are having right kind of staff with right kind of skills, and if not, what are the skill gaps? After identifying the skill gaps, the company should find out as to how those gaps could be filled, whether those gaps could be filled by hiring the fresh talent from the market, or they should train the existing staff, or work with any external AI provider on outsourcing basis, or whether they should acquire any new business which is already into AI. Do we have awareness and buy-in for AI from the leadership and at the other in the level? Herein they are talking about. See, we know that any kind of technology or any kind of strategy could not work without getting support from all the people from top to bottom, and therefore the organization should ask itself whether the people in the organization are aware about AI, and if not, how the organization member should be convinced about this technology. What the organization should do in order to raise awareness and promote the buy-in or acceptance by the members. Then the next point is regarding implementation. Here, the organization would think about turning the AI strategy into reality. So after setting your strategy, you definitely need to implement it in order to get some results. Here we have to ask following questions. How do we deliver our AI projects? That is how our AI projects would be implemented. What are the key steps that are needed in order to implement our AI projects? Who is responsible for delivering each of the actions? So you have to distribute the authority and responsibility for various steps among the organization member and make members clear about what each member has to do. What actions or projects will need to be outsourced? So the organization may not choose to do each and every activity by itself in-house. It may choose to outsource certain activities and focus only on its core competencies. Change management issues. So introducing AI in the organization may change the jobs, may change the management, may change any part which is not in line with AI projects. And these kind of change are definitely not accepted by the employees very easily. There is lots of resistance. And so you need to manage this change so that change can be carried out very smoothly. For this, following questions have to be asked. Which employees and team members will be impacted? Sorry. Which employees and team members will be impacted by the AI projects? So who all would be impacted really by the AI projects? How the organization should communicate effectively with these people about the changes which AI will bring in their work area, because communication is must and change should not come as shock to these members. How the change process can be managed? How would you manage the change process so that change is implemented smoothly without much resistance? How will AI change the company's culture and how that cultural change could be managed? Because changing the culture is not an easy task. Culture is something which had been built by years, and some cultural values are tightly held by people. So there is a deep or emotional connection with some of the cultural values by your employees, and they may not be ready to modify all those values. And therefore, sometimes cultural changes are difficult. The organization should think about the ways in which that kind of cultural change they would manage. So artificial intelligence definitely has potential to transform every business, as internet has utterly transformed the way in which we do our business. We have now smarter products and services. The way the businesses take decision, the way they do their business processes have completely changed these days with the help of technology. And AI also have power to change almost everything. So all those businesses who are not still accepting AI, who do not capitalize on the power of AI, are in the risk of being left behind in the competition. Now, the next topic for the today is fintech. Fintech is a combination of two words, which is financial technology. Now, financial technology is means that the technological or the use of technology to deliver the financial services. Now, there are a variety of the financial services that we use in our daily life. This includes banking services, wherein we deposit our money, we transfer the money to some persons, or we withdraw the money for our own use. Similarly, financial services also include insurance services, where we take insurance from the insurance companies and pay premium on the regular basis. And it includes various other financial services. Now, gone are the days wherein you need to stand in line before the bank in order to withdraw your own money or to deposit your money. All this could be done with the help of technology now on your smartphones or on your computers. Wherein, when you transfer or when you transform the way you deliver the financial services to your customer, you are using the financial technology or the fintech. Fintech is used by the companies, the business owners, the consumers in order to manage their financial operations, in order to do the financial transactions and make their lives much better. This is done with the help of various software and algorithms, which could be run on computers and increasingly on the smartphones. So you may have various applications such as Paytm, MobiKwik, Bharat Money, any other applications which is helping you to do your financial transactions. Now, fintech is combination of two words, which I already told you: financial technology. Financial technology is a kind of an innovation which is helping people to transact the financial transaction with the use of technology. With the help of internet revolution and with the help of mobile internet smartphone revolution, financial technology as an industry have grown explosively. And the fintech is a word which was previously known to only some of the people, but this has gained lots of importance these days. Previously, this financial technology was used only for doing the back office functions of banks and trading firms. But now, this technology is not limited to the back office function. It is used by the customers for their personal and commercial financial management. In the 21st century, fintech is a technology which has emerged in 21st century. It is using technology to do financial services. Previously, it was used only for back-end operations, but now this technology has shifted more towards providing customer-oriented services, and these days it has become more customer-oriented. Fintech includes different sectors wherein you can provide the services by using technology. It includes education, retail banking, fundraising, non-profit and investment management. So these are the areas wherein fintech is doing wonders. Now, according to the FinTech Adoption Index survey of 2017, one third of the customers utilize at least two or more of fintech services. and number of these customers are increasing because of the use of fintech in their daily lives. Fintech includes much more. Fintech includes development and use of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin these days. So Bitcoin is a digital currency which is in news and which is a hot and debated topic. The advantages and disadvantages of using this Bitcoin is discussed heavily these days. Bitcoin relies upon one technology which is known as blockchain technology, which is our next topic. Fintech describes variety of the financial services, including your money transfer, depositing your check by using your smartphone, bypassing the bank branch by applying credit. So whenever you want to apply for loan, now you do not have to go to bank. You have the various applications wherein you can directly apply for loan to bank. These startups can raise money with the help of mobile applications and managing your investments. So some of these are still not included in India, but they are talking about the global level. Now, fintech includes many more areas wherein it is actively used. It includes cryptocurrency and digital cash. Digital cash or cryptocurrency are the fine example of fintech services, wherein every financial transaction is done digitally without the use of hard currency. Blockchain technology is a base of cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. Basically, blockchain technology, which is also known as Ethereum, is a distributed ledger technology. Please remember this. Blockchain technology is a distributed ledger technology. Now, distributed ledger technology is a technology wherein we say that the information should not be stored or any transaction information should not be held by only a single centralized authority, such as RBI. So these days we know that all our money and the financial information is held by banks. So banks working under RBI becomes the sole authority which have the complete control of our money and our personal financial information. Whereas distributed ledger technology says that this information should not be stored with a single centralized entity. There should be no single centralized entity as such. There should be no controller of the financial transaction. There should be no middleman or intermediary in the financial transactions. And the person should be able to transfer their money to the other without without any intermediary, without any problem. And it is known as distributed ledger. See, we know that ledger is a kind of a book wherein you record all your transactions. So, and distributed ledger means that the information about the transactions that is recorded digitally is not with a single entity, but is distributed to all the persons who are part of the network. So in a blockchain, a network is created and all those who are part of a network have the copy of this ledger, have the copy of all the transactions which are done. So if you buy or sell any Bitcoin, if you transfer any Bitcoin to any other person, that transaction information would be available to every person in the network. However, that information would definitely be encrypted. It will be available in an encrypted form. So that means that distributed ledger technology means that the records are maintained on the computer network and there is no central ledger. They are talking about some other examples wherein we are seeing fintech. There is something which is known as smart contract, wherein the contracts are made with the help of computer program, and this kind of contract can automatically be executed between buyers and sellers without going through the hassles of making the paper contract, executing and then executing them. Open banking again is a concept of blockchain, and wherein we say that all the information of the transaction should be freely available to the third parties. Information should not only be held by banks, it should be available to the third parties. Third parties can then create a kind of a network of financial institutions. And one example of open banking is all-in-one money management tool, Mint. InsurTech. InsurTech is a use of a technology which is helpful to simplify and streamline the insurance industry. So all the insurance services can be easily taken with the help of InsurTech, which is a kind of financial tech services. RegTech or regulation technology is a kind of a financial services which help the industries to comply with the rules, regulations, and laws, especially regarding money laundering and know your customer with the help of this technology. So this technology will highlight the areas of compliance to be done by the industries and help them to comply all the rules and regulations on time and help to fight fraud. So technology will help you to comply with rules and regulations on time. Robo advisors such as Betterment. Betterment is one kind of robo advisor wherein robots or machines by using algorithm will give investment advice. So herein definitely the cost would be lowered. Instead of keeping any specialized expert or agent to give you financial advisory services, you can take the help of robo advisors, which are machines which analyze the data and give you the investment advice at low cost and increase the accessibility to the wide range of information. Fintech is also been helpful in certain areas such as Kenya, wherein the unbanked or underbanked areas were served with the financial services. This helped the disadvantaged or the low income people, which are definitely ignored or underserved by the traditional bank, to reach the mainstream and get the benefits of financial services. So with the help of a technology, financial services were made available to the underprivileged people, wherein the traditional banking services are not available. Cyber security issues are very common, wherein you are using technology with finance, and there is a risk of leaking of personal information and scams. And cybersecurity is a topic which is debated when we talk about financial technology. So cybersecurity, given the proliferation of cybercrime and decentralized storage of the data, we said that there is no single authority controlling the data, but the data is available to everyone in the network. So there is decentralized storage of the data. Cybersecurity and fintech are intertwined. Whenever we'll talk about fintech, we'll definitely have to look upon the security issues. So just give it a brief read. They may ask you, Dash is which seeks to use the technology to simplify and streamline insurance industry. So the answer would be InsurTech. Similarly, Dash is a financial services that help for industry compliance, that is RegTech. Robo advisors. So just read this once. Just read this once. This may definitely come in your multiple choice question. Now, there are various users of FinTech or the financial technology. Basically, it includes four broad categories. The first one is B2B for banks and their business clients. So B2B is business to business, wherein banks can do financial services between themselves and with the large business clients. The third and fourth includes B2C, that is business to consumer, where bank can transact with small businesses, which are not big enough, but very small businesses and the normal retail customers. So banks, business clients, small business and customers or consumers are the four broad categories who are considered as users of fintech. Please remember this. Now, as we know that mobile banking and financial transaction with the help of a mobile, doing analytics and decentralization of the data which comes with financial technology, all this creates the opportunity for the above four group in order to do financial transaction in a very quick and easy manner. So all these four groups can do the financial transaction very easily with the help of mobile banking and other smart applications. Now, fintech basically targets the younger people, because young people these days are much more aware about the technology and therefore they understand what financial technology is. We use this financial technology in our day-to-day life in order to get the financial services on our smartphones. And therefore, the consumer orientation of fintech is mostly towards millennials. Now, millennials are all those people who are born between 1981 to 1996. So those who are born between 1981 to 1986 are considered as millennials, and they are the core target group of fintech. Please remember this. And the other two groups which are not much in the focus of fintech are Gen X and baby boomers. And Gen X are those people who are born between 1965 to 1980. Baby boomers are born between 1946 to 1964. These people are not the core target of fintech. This is because and why millennials are the target of fintech. This is because of they are of the huge size. The population of millennials is much more than Gen X and baby boomers, and secondly, they are regarded as more tech savvy and they have rising income. So people in this age group are still earning or will earn in future, and therefore because of their earning and huge size, they are considered to be the core consumer target of fintech. So please just read this much from this content. Who are the target group of fintech? Now, what is the problem regarding regulation of fintech? So fintech is mostly regulated in most of the sectors of the world. Financial services are regulated heavily because this involves money, and public money is protection of public money is responsibility of government, and therefore they make laws in order to ensure that the financial services are provided to the people without and there are less chances of scams and fraud with the people money. Financial services poses regulation of fintech because of involvement of a technology is a problem for the government. Automation and processes and digitization of the data make fintech services vulnerable to the attacks of hackers. Now, hackers are all those people who will try to get the private information of the users, such as password and other important information, and gain in an unfair manner. So the hackers mostly attack on the private information and they attack on the digital information. And in fintech, we are talking about digitization of all the financial services, and therefore the attack of hackers is a problem, and government needs to regulate and remove this problem. In these days, we have seen that hackers have attacked the credit card companies and banks with much ease, and because of this, they have caused the irreparable damage to the system and the confidence of the consumers. And when all this happens, the consumers question the banks as to who will take the responsibility of such attack and the misuse of their personal and important financial data. So consumers are always left clueless when all these kind of attacks takes place. So there are benefits of using financial technology. You can get all the financial services on your tips without wasting much time and without involving much cost. But again, there is risk of privacy, risk of data leaks and hacking. So also it is said that whenever the technology collides with the conservative philosophy, there are problems. So the technology culture believes in move fast and break things. Technology culture is something which talks about move fast and break the old ways of doing things, whereas the conservative and risk-free averse world of finance has a completely different philosophy, and therefore people are not in favor of quickly changing everything. There are people who are still resisting the use of financial technology because they do not want to take the risk that comes with the use of financial technology. So regulation is always a problem for the world. In India also, the government, especially RBI, first of all, said that dealing in cryptocurrencies will be considered as illegal. But now, as the world is accepting cryptocurrencies, India has now accepted the use of cryptocurrencies, but still the picture is not very clear. Government is talking about developing a strong regulation for dealing with cryptocurrencies, but developing this regulation is again a challenge. There is one more thing which is of the recent origin in financial technology, that is initial coin offerings. This is now not very common in India, but we should understand this concept. Initial coin offering is much more, is very similar to your initial public offering, wherein the company goes to public for raising the funds. So startup companies usually go to public, or the companies go to public for the first time for getting finance. That is known as initial public offering. An initial coin offering is also a form of fundraising which allows the startup to raise capital from the lay investors. So people in initial coin offerings will invest the money invest the money into the company, and the companies will give them a kind of a digital currency in return. So that is initial coin offering, wherein the public will invest in the company, and company will not give them share certificate or something, but will give them a kind of a digital currency, which they can use it for purchase of the product and services of company and much more things, right? So that is initial coin offering. Now initial coin offering is regulated because it has become the fertile ground for scams and fraud. This is the initial coin offering is not regulated in most of the countries. It is unregulated, and therefore it has become the fertile ground for scams and fraud. Because of regulatory uncertainty regarding ICOs, there are entrepreneurs who have used this um, in order to disguise SEC, that is Securities Corporation, and they didn't pay the proper fees and cost, and also made people money and made the wrong use of people money. They have done fraud with people. They haven't complied with the proper rules and regulations. So ICO is basically a completely new field, and there are no rules and regulations regarding it, and therefore the companies are using it blindly because there is no one to ask them as to what and why, because there is no law regulating it, and therefore it has become the grounds for scam and frauds. Please remember what is full form of ICO. It is only similar to initial public offerings. And because the financial services is an area which is offered in a different financial services are offered in a diverse way, and diverse industries are taking benefit of financial technology, it is very difficult to formulate a comprehensive law which is applicable to all those industries regarding financial technology. And these days, most of the government are using the existing regulations which are already in place. And some of the governments have developed the customized laws in order to regulate fintech. Now, fintech, uh, the General Data Protection Regulation is something which is developed by EU to protect the personal data. So EU is European Union, which have passed this law, which is known as General Data Protection Regulation. And this is done in order to protect the personal data. And there are certain countries such as Japan and South Korea which favor ICO. ICO, that is initial coin offerings, are very popular in these countries, Japan and South Korea. But because I already told you that ICOs are unregulated, and ICOs were unregulated, and they have led to certain frauds, and therefore these governments are also now developing regulations in order to protect the investors against the fraud that are involved in these offerings. So still the financial technology is evolving every day. Much new factors are added to this field, and regulations are still not in place regarding some of the financial technology instruments. It's a challenge to regulate such a huge field and protect the investors. Now, the last answer for today is blockchain technology. Now, blockchain technology is basically the backbone of Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies. We should remember that blockchain technology and Bitcoin are not same. Bitcoin or all other cryptocurrencies are applications which are made by using blockchain technology. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is nothing but the series of data linked together. This block is basically the data or record. So whenever any transaction is done, it is recorded in the form of small batches. Instead of recording all the transactions together, the transactions are recorded in small batches, which are known as block. When one block is filled with the information, the other block is generated. Now, these blocks are protected, or they have their own unique identification codes, which are called as hashes. So each and every block will have its unique identification code, which is very unique to it. It is as our fingerprint. As our fingerprint identifies us, or as our Aadhaar number is unique to us, similarly, each and every block will have its own fingerprint, which is known as unique identification code. And every block will have two kind of hashes, which is the hash of itself and also of the previous block. And just we'll see this diagram in order to make you understand the blockchain technology much more clearly. See here in the first step, what happens? Supposingly there is one person who is requesting, supposingly there is one person A who wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Mr. B. So he'll request this transaction. He'll request this transaction to the network. And when this transaction is requested, a transaction box is created. A transaction block is created, which is the block which will record this transaction. A block will record this transaction that Mr. A wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Mr. B. This block will be created. Now this block will be sent to each and every node. Now node is nothing but a participant of the network. There are certain computers which are connected to each other. There are certain computers which have the responsibility to authenticate the transactions that are done in cryptocurrencies. And they have the responsibility to authenticate the information that is recorded in the blockchain. So all those persons who have the computers which are part of the blockchain network are considered as the participant or the nodes. Now, when this block is sent to the nodes, they will have to validate the transaction. And to validate this is not an easy thing. Those who will take this task to validate will have to solve a certain very difficult mathematical problem, which will take lots of time and energy. And those who take all these efforts are known as miners. So miners are the persons who validate the transaction, and they are then rewarded in the form of Bitcoins or the other digital currency for their work. So when the nodes validate the transaction, the nodes, as I already told you, will be rewarded in the form of cryptocurrency. The validation that they do is known as proof of work. The task that they do in order to validate the blockchain, this block record is known as proof of work. Now, what they do in order to validate, they will, as I already told you, they'll solve a complex mathematical problem. Plus, they'll see that if Mr. A wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Mr. B, whether Mr. A has 1 Bitcoin. So first of all, the person should have that Bitcoin if he wants to send. And if not, the transaction would be invalidated and will not be added to blockchain. So that all things are to be done by them. And when the transaction is authenticated by more than 50% of the computer or the nodes, the block is added to the blockchain. So there is already existing chain, and this is one more record which is added to that chain. And then the chain is updated, and this updated record is sent to all the network computers. So that is why the blockchain is considered as a distributed ledger, because the information or the records are not stored at a single place, but all those computers which are part of this network will have the copy of this ledger. They will all have the copy of this encrypted ledger. And when the network is completed, the transaction is completed. Mr. A will send the Bitcoin to Mr. B, and the network will be updated. The chain will be updated. Now, this is block. The first block that was ever created is known as Genesis block. Now there are lots of blocks already created. There are lots of transactions which are done throughout the world in Bitcoin and the other transaction. So the first block that is created is known as Genesis block. See, each block will have 3 things. The block will have the data, that is the actual record of the transaction. That information will be stored in a block. Secondly, as I already told you, block will have its hash, which is its unique identification number. So the hash of the Genesis block is this. It can be any number which is alphanumeric number to identify this block. And the block will also have the hash of the previous block, because we want to create a chain. In order to create the chain, the block will have the block will have its own hash plus also the hash of the previous. And that's why, and this is how the chain will be created. So herein you can say that this is the first block, and that's why there is no previous hash. The first block will have no previous hash. We'll see the second block, and the second block will have its own hash as well as the hash of the previous block. And similarly, the third block will have its own hash and the hash of the previous block, which is block number 2. And that's how the blocks are connected and the chain is created. Now now making the change in this block information is not easy. That's why it is said that the blockchain technology is very, very secure, because there is no problem of data alteration in this. If any person want to change the data in this block, he will have to change the data of all the blocks after that. Okay, if you want to change the information in the Genesis block, you will have to change all the blocks that follows, and this is not an easy task. For changing the block information of all the blocks that follows, you require again the permission of the various nodes. More than 50% of participant in the computers, more than 50% of participant in the network should agree to that change. And if there is if they do not agree, your transaction or your change is invalidated. And that's why it is said that it is not easy to change and there is no problem of manipulation. And this blockchain technology is also considered as very secure, because the information, though it is distributed to every participant in the network, it is not seen as it is, right? It is seen in the form of encrypted form. It is seen in the encrypted form. And so your personal data is not revealed as it is. So that is not the problem, right? So that is what they are saying here. So once your information is, once your transaction is approved, it will be recorded as a part of the blockchain. So blockchain is therefore regarded as a continuous ledger, because there is a chain of ledger, there is chain of information stored. And this information is not owned by a single individual, but there are series of computers which stores this information. The ledger, the information is shared and copied on all the computers which are the part of the system. And that's why it is known as decentralized ledger system. This decentralized storage system provides a security. As I already told you, there is no, it is not easy to change. If one tries to change one record, the hash of that block will change. So see, if you change the data of suppose block number 2, the hash will change. The hash of this data block will change, and then it will not be connected to the third block, because the third block is having this hash. And if you change the data of block number 2, this hash will change, and then there would be no connectivity between block 2 and block 3. This will create disruption in the entire system. And to avoid this disruption, blockchain technology requires the authentication from more than 50% of the network holders in order to ensure that the transaction or the alteration is validated. So that's what they are saying. If you want to change the information of one block, it will disconnect it from the other block. And because its hash will change, this block will be disconnected from the other. And this will create disruptions, because as the data is stored on multiple systems, if any person want to change the detail, he cannot do it on his own, and he requires the permission of other system holders as well. Now, blockchain and Bitcoin are not same. Blockchain is the base of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And blockchain technology offers transparency and security. And that's why it is a reason that cryptocurrency has been become popular these days. This technology, that is blockchain technology, is not only useful in Bitcoins, but it can be used to store any kind of information. It can be used to store retail information, manufacturing, banking information. And herein the transaction can be done by one person with the another directly without the involvement of any middleman. There is data security, because data is stored in an encrypted form, and there is no easy way of changing that data. It reduces corruption, because the information is not stored at one place, but it is available at every computer in the node. It improves the speed and service delivery, because the transaction authentication approval is done within few seconds. And this can therefore be useful by the government in order to record the public transactions. Supposingly, the land records which are maintained by the government in the physical form are moved to the blockchain. Then all the buying and selling of the property done till date and the future buying and selling would be automatically recorded in the blocks, which can be accessed easily by the public, and therefore the corruption can be arrested. Anyone can know as to who owns the property now, and previously it was owned by whom, and how and when it was transaction for how many bitcoins. So all this can be easily arrested. It can be seen as to who is doing the transaction, when and how. So people cannot now hide behind the false transactions. So governing can be made much more easier. Similarly, the hallmark jewelry, the jewelry also involves lots of corruption in buying and selling. So this transaction can also be done through the blockchain ledger, which can be maintained by jewelers and it can be viewed by the consumers. But it is said that blockchain is a new technology and should be adopted in a gradual manner. It will be adopted by all the countries later or sooner, but it should be adopted in a very gradual manner, because the technology is still in the evolving stage. And we have seen that Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies these days have seen various fluctuations in the value. There was time when one Bitcoin was sold for only 20 rupees. It reached at the value of 45 to 50 lakhs, and now it has a value of 30 lakh for one Bitcoin. So it is quickly changing, and that's why this is because of there is no regulatory supervision and there is no clarity still, and that's why government are partly hesitant in order to go ahead and use it very quickly. But because of various benefits, it is needed that the government should quickly resolve the legal and the regulatory challenges and adopt this technology. Blockchain has been developing in various fields and there are lots of practical uses. You as a business person can also use it in your own business in order to improve the experience of your customer, in order to enhance the transparency of your business. It can also be used by banks for the banking transactions, land records, vehicle registration details. Every information can be stored by using this blockchain technology. And there are three pillars of the blockchain technology. Please remember the names of these three pillars. The first is decentralization, the second is transparency, and the third is immutability. So the first and the most important pillar was decentralization. See, before Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies such as BitTorrent were there, we have only experienced that all our money is secured with banks and there is one centralized authority which is known as RBI. So this was the case. The information was stored as a centralized services. And this was done because when there is centralized entity to store our data, we trust that entity. And that's why this has been the system. RBI and the banks have been the sole authority which have all the information regarding the clients, right? And whenever we want to deal with our money, we have to interact with the banks. Whenever we want to withdraw our money, we have to interact with bank. Deposit our money, we have to update to bank. And that is the thing. We have to interact with that particular entity about any transaction that we do. So another example, this is the example of centralized entity. The most popular example is bank. We store our money in bank, and whenever we do any transaction, this is through bank. So there is one authority which is always in center, that is bank, when we do any financial transaction. But here in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, we are talking about this decentralized authority, because the information in this technology is not stored with a single entity. Everyone in the network who owns the network in the computer, the nodes own this information. And therefore, we say that the the blockchain technology is a decentralized ledger system. There is decentralization of the information. So if you want to send the Bitcoin to your friend, that can be done directly, and there is no need to involve any third party in between. This is the main ideology behind Bitcoin. There were some people who were saying that, we should be charged of our own money, and why bank is acting as a middleman. And that's why Bitcoin came into existence, because people like to be in the complete control of their own money. So you can send your money to anyone without having to go through bank if you are using blockchain technology and Bitcoins. The second point is transparency. And this is the most debated topic about Bitcoin, because some say that blockchain technology offers transparency. Some says that blockchain has some privacy related issues. So what is the real thing? So as I told you that your identity, your personal identity, the information that is shared across the computers is not in the form as it is. It is hidden via complex cryptography. It is presented to the public in the form of encryption. And so if even if any person would look at your transaction history, they will not see the transaction address. Suppose Bob sent 1 Bitcoin to his friend, and this information would be stored in the ledger, it will be stored in a blockchain, but still it will not be seen in the plain English form. It will be seen in this kind of form, right? So it will be seen in this kind of form, which is completely encrypted, sent 1 BTC. So Bob, your personal identification will be hidden, though the transaction that you have done will be seen. And therefore it is said that there is complete transparency and there is no problem of privacy, because the personal detail are very secure in these kind of transaction, right? This kind of transparency has never existed before in the financial system. This increases the accountability of the institutions. Now, the third pillar is immutability. Immutability in the blockchain means that once something is entered in a blockchain, it cannot be tempered. It cannot be altered very easily. This is because the blockchain gets this property because of cryptographic hash function. I already told you, if you change the information in one block, the hash function of that block will change, and this will create the problem in the other block. The block that you have changed would be disconnected from the other blocks. You will not be able to change. And if you want to change, you will require the permission from the other nodes as well. Now, hashing, they have explained. What is hash? Hash is nothing but the input strength of any length giving an output of fixed length. Just remember this definition. Basically, hash function is a kind of an input, and it is a form of an alpha numeric. It is in the form of alpha numeric. Now, in context of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the transactions are taken as input and run through hashing algorithm. See, your transaction is an input and hash is an output. Your transaction that you have done is an input and hash is the output. So if your transaction is Bob sent 1 BTC, is your transaction, a specific hash would be generated for this input. Your transaction will be input and your hash is the output of fixed length. Length of every application is fixed. So for Bitcoin, they uses the hashing function, which is known as SHA-256. That kind of hashing they use, which gives output of fixed length. And instead of remembering your input, you can just remember the hash of a fixed length. Please remember, hash is the output. Your input is your transaction, hash is the output of fixed length, and Bitcoin uses this hashing algorithm. By using this algorithm, they generate the hash for different transactions. SHA-256 is the algorithm used by Bitcoin. Now, there are various uses, business applications wherein we can use the blockchain technology. It can be used for making smart contract, which are done in the digital form. Sharing economy, crowdfunding, wherein you can raise the funds for your startup from people, from the crowd, the general public. Governance, wherein the government can see the transactions and ensure that the transactions are done in a proper manner according to the laws. Supply chain, decentralizing the file storage, wherein the information regarding the different files is not stored at a single location, but it is decentralized. Predicting markets, protection of intellectual property. Ninth is Internet of Things, neighborhood microgrids, identity management, anti-money laundering, and know your customer, data management, land title registration, and stock trading. See, we do not need to get into details of all this. Just read this once. So it is said that blockchain is a revolutionary thing, and it is a mechanism which can bring everyone to the highest degree of accountability, because now nothing would be nothing all the information is can be seen by every person who is part of this network, and nothing is hidden, so there are less chances of corruption. So there would be no more missed transaction, human or machine errors, because everything is done by technology. There is no machine or human error, and there would be no transaction where there is no consent of parties. Everything would be done with the help of blockchain, where there would be guarantee that every transaction in a blockchain is validated properly. As I already told you, any transaction that is initiated is to be validated before it becomes the part of the chain. So even if you want to change that block, it's not very easy, and so people can trust the records of the blockchain. All the information is secured in this mechanism. So this was all about blockchain. I hope you got a glimpse of what it is, and you have an MCQ pattern. So I tried to make you understand this subject by following each and every line of this book. I hope you enjoyed these sessions with me. Please do comment in the comment section if you face any doubt and require further understanding. Thank you.